Hi guys, it's Caroline, and today I'm going to be talking about the Goodreads finalists. Now, I love stats, I love competitions, I love all of that, and every year I get really excited around the Goodreads Choice Awards, and so now that I have a booktube channel, I'm going to talk about my thoughts on who I think's going to win, who I think should win, all that good stuff. So I'm getting right into it. First up is fiction. I've read 5 of the finalists. I've read The Glass Hotel, Dear Edward, The Girl with the Louding Voice, Such a Fun Age, and My Dark Vanessa. I also own Transcendent Kingdom and Anxious People, both of which I'm really looking forward to, and I'm sad that I haven't read them yet because I might vote for them because I think both of them are really going to be great. Dear Edward was completely meh, just like kind of boring, kind of like meh, just depressing for no reason, and I don't want that to win. The Glass Hotel I really liked. I loved Station 11, and I read that right when the pandemic hit. The Glass Hotel was good, although nowhere near as good as Station 11, so in that sense it was a little bit of a letdown, although I did really enjoy it. It's just in comparison to Station 11, it was just like leagues away, even though like Station 11 was a 5-star read and this was a 4-star read. The Girl with the Louding Voice I really liked. I think it did a great job of portraying that part of the world and just like a girl who was really going through it, but she's so optimistic and just like so lovely, and I really appreciated her voice and how the character as the like actual main character grows, like so does the language of the book. My Dark Vanessa, my book club read it, and that book is bleak, man, real bleak. We just couldn't get past it. The sex scenes between the main character and her teacher are really graphic, and that's kind of the point because the main character doesn't see herself as a victim and believes it to be like the great love story of her life for most of the book, and she's kind of processing it. I don't know, it was just really hard to read, and I'm not voting for that one. And then there's Such a Fun Age, which I think is really thought-provoking. My biggest complaint about it is that there's no subtext. The book does all the thinking for you, but I also think it talks about something that's really important. It is all about performative activism, particularly by white women, when it comes to racism, and I think it brings up a lot of points, both really small micro points and also like big picture things about how white women perform this activism on a public scale, but in their own private lives are not doing the things that they should be to help Black women. And so I think it was really thought-provoking, and also I don't love contemporaries, and this was a contemporary that kept me engaged. So in terms of fiction, my top 3, Glass Hotel, Such a Fun Age, and Girl with the Louding Voice, but I think I'm gonna have to go with Such a Fun Age. That's who I hope wins. I actually think it has a good shot. It's my pick for both. Next we have mystery thriller, and I've read 3, When No One Is Watching, The Guest List, and Long Bright River. My favorite was definitely When No One Was Watching. I thought The Guest List was way too convenient. It was fun, and it like, you know, I was along for the ride, but then like everything fell into place. It was just like, woo, and I was like, too convenient. So there was that. And I thought Long Bright River was fine. It was just so long for what it was. For a lot of it, I don't know, it just like kept it dissipated the tension because it was so long. When No One Is Watching was weird because the first 50% of it doesn't feel like a thriller. It feels like a contemporary, possibly a contemporary romance, and then like the thriller aspect starts to ratchet up and you're like, what's going on? And then the final like 10%, you're like, whoa, it just turns into this full-on frenzy, kind of in a Get Out kind of way. And I like that. I think the pacing was very weird, but had it been full-on whack, you know, the whole time, I would have been like, no. So, I don't know. I'm vibing with it, and I'm gonna pick that one, but I don't think that one's gonna win. I think something like Guest List will win, because I just think that one was super hyped. It's a book of the month, and I think people are more likely to pick book of the month books because a lot of people have read those. Next up, historical fiction. All I've read is The Vanishing Half, and I love that book. I love The Vanishing Half. If you have not read The Vanishing Half, what are you doing? Read The Vanishing Half. I vote for it. Better win. Also sad because I love historical fiction and I've only read 1. The lighting got weird and we're just gonna roll with it. Anyway, next up is fantasy, and I'm hot garbage and I haven't read any of them, despite the fact that I deeply love fantasy, and it's because I'm behind on my series and just behind in general, but I do own The City We Became, The Invisible Life of Addie LaRue, and I have really high hopes for both of them. And I also just got introduced to Brandon Sanderson this year, and so I'm sure Rhythm of War is wonderful as well, and just a bunch of those I'm looking forward to. I'm weird about my series too, and fantasies and series, and I like to marathon them, so whatever. I'm also really looking forward to The Burning God. Next up is romance. The only romance I've read is Beach Read, but boy did I love it. That was a good ride. Set in Michigan, and it's just so super duper cute. I love it. It was heartwarming, and if you're a book lover, which you probably are if you're watching this video, or if you're reading something called Beach Read, then it's just gonna warm your heart. It's about two authors, and one writes romance, one writes dark, like the classic American novel, and they're both at writer's block, and then they try to help each other out by writing the other person's thing. Super cute, warm and fuzzy. It was a perfect beach read, I will say. So, all the way. Next up is horror. I have surprisingly read 2 of these. I'm not a big horror reader, so this is very shocking, but I have read Mexican Gothic and the Southern Book Club's Guide to Slaying Vampires. I like them both, but let me tell you, did I love Southern Book Club. So, first of all, it's set in Mount Pleasant in the 90s, I think. Mount Pleasant is like an hour's drive from where I live, and so it had that South Carolina feel. It was very, very wonderful. It captured that, but also in a 90s sort of way. I think it had a really great commentary on race and sex in the South, you know, what it's like to be a woman, a housewife in the 90s, what your gender roles are, what your gender expectations are, what it's like to be middle class versus like lower class, you know, what it's like to be black and white in this area where it's the South and things are really segregated, but people pretend like they're not. And on top of it, it's just this like fun horror vampire thing. So it's having all this interesting commentary about basically my home. And I really understood that and got the layers, but then it's also just this like absolutely laugh out loud, funny, over the top, like blood and gore, like vampires spraying, whatever. It's just like, I don't even know the word for it, but it's just like silly horror. You know, it's so gory that it's kind of making fun of horror, but I loved it. It was so perfect. I want that to win so bad. I don't think it will because it doesn't have enough hype, but please, I bet you Mexican Gothic wins because that book has had so much hype surrounding it. And you know what? It's a good book, and you know, you do you, girl, but I want my Southern Book Club. Next up is humor, and I've only read Wow No Thank You by Samantha Irby, but listen, you should read that. I want it to win. It won't. Probably Colin Jost will or something because he's more famous. But Samantha Irby is so funny. Listen to the audiobook. She narrates it and she knows what's up. Next up is nonfiction. Only one I've read is Hood Feminism. I don't think that one's gonna win because there's not enough hype, but you know what? I'm sure plenty of those nonfictions are great. I'm not a huge nonfiction reader and I'm really like not up on the time, so I don't have much to say. For debut, we've got Such a Fun Age, My Dark Vanessa, and Girl with the Louding Voice, and honestly, those 3 are all in the fiction category, so I don't have anything new to say. I'm just sending it for Such a Fun Age, although maybe I'd toss it to Girl with the Louding Voice just because, you know, she does do some more interesting things with how it's written. Next up, we got YA, and again, I don't think of myself as a huge YA reader, and yet here I am with 4 books. I have got Clap When You Land, Hand on the Wall, One of Us Is Next, and Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes. None of these, like, were 5-star reads, so it's kind of hard. I do really like Clap When You Land. I think it's beautifully written, and I just thought there wasn't enough time where the 2 girls were actually face to face, and I wanted a little bit more interaction. But besides from that, I thought it was a really beautiful piece about just community and sisterhood and family and like what to do when you find out your parents aren't perfect. Majesty is the second in the American Royal series, which basically is just what if Washington was our king and not our president, and then now we're in present day and we've got royalty, but besides from that, it's just a contemporary. And I was surprised about how much I liked it, considering there's like 3 love triangles, and I hate love triangles, but I liked it. I thought it was cute. It's just fluff, so I don't think it's just like gonna seal the deal for me. Then I've got One of Us Is Next, and that was a thriller, and it was terrible. It was so awful. It was so bad. I don't have anything to tell you other than the fact that it was bad. Then there's Hand on the Wall, which is the 3rd in a trilogy, although I guess now it's really just a quartet. I thought it was kind of a weak finish. There's nothing wrong with it. I just don't think it's gonna get my vote because it didn't didn't send it. So Clap When You Land's got to get my vote there. And I think that's got a good chance, although I think Hand on the Wall is just gonna like cinch it because people love that trilogy. People really do love that trilogy, and it's popular on BookTube. And then finally, YA fantasy, which shockingly, because I've read 0 adult fantasy, I have read 4 YA fantasy. I've read Midnight Sun, Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes, Chain of Gold, and Queen of Nothing. Now, I interviewed Holly Black, so I got to read Queen of Nothing and then like talk to her about it. I don't love that series. Full disclosure, don't hate me. It's just, I don't like the relationship. I think it's weird. I think the enemies to lovers, she went too hard on making them enemies. So now when they love each other, I'm like, girl, he hates you. You hate him. What are we doing here? And then they're like, it's sexy though. And I'm like, no. Midnight Sun was god-awful. So bad. I'll do a wrap-up because I read it this month. It was terrible. It was long. I don't know why the audiobook needed to be 26 hours when there wasn't any new plot. I don't know why all the vampires are the worst. They're like teenagers, but also old people, and they act the worst of both demographics. It was bad. I'm gonna say it. Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes was okay. Nowhere near as like fabulous as I wanted it to be, my little Hunger Games heart. It also wasn't like the terrible thing that people were worried it was gonna be. It was just flat. It was like a 3.5 star. We'll leave it at that. And Chain of Gold was quite good. I know Cassandra Clare, I mean, those aren't like works of like masterful literature, but it's cute. I love the setting. I love it when it's the old-timey stuff. I love the characters. I love the romance in this one. I don't find it problematic. Like, I don't like the beginning Shadowhunter things because I think the reason why the characters can't be together is super annoying. But in this one, it felt like all the reasons why people couldn't be together like made sense, and also just felt more natural and just angsty rather than weird incest. I don't know. But I really liked it, and I'm gonna have to give that one my vote. I think it's got a good shot, although it's up against some real contenders. I think a lot of the Twilight fandom's gonna hit Midnight Sun, although it was so bad, how can you? And a lot of people are gonna vote for Queen of Nothing because that's also got a strong fandom, although that Queen of Nothing was also kind of a weak ending, and I think a lot of people who are fans of the trilogy, who, unlike me, actually like the romance, thought it was a weak ending. Like, it was so short too, it just went boom. But anyway, I'm going with Chain of Gold. And those are my thoughts on the Goodreads Choice Awards. Let me know who you're really rooting for, and if you agree with any of my thoughts down below.